Good morning, everyone. John Martinez here, Midwest Revenue Group. We are going to get revved up. Got people just pouring into the class right now, so we will give this 60 seconds, and we'll just kind of do some light housekeeping as everyone gets logged on and settled in. I know on the West Coast, it's first thing in the morning for you and early, so thanks for bearing with us. Out on the East Coast, I know it's almost lunchtime, so thank you for bearing with us too and holding on there. And hanging through before leaving to, grab some lunch, my absolute favorite part of the day. So, first of all, want to make sure the audio is working. Please raise your hands if you can hear me loud and clear. Awesome. Good. Hopefully we don't have a repeat of last week, right, where the audio cut out. So, today we're going to kick off the diagnosis. Guys, this is where sales are won or lost. So, pay attention. This is an important one. Really, once you master this step in the sales process, you really don't get much further in a lot of cases. When you can master the diagnosis, the rest of the sales process is absolutely awesome and essential. And every step we take, everything we implement is going to lead to more deals. But to be completely honest with you, when you master this step, lots of times your prospects will not let you get any deeper into the sales process that they'll ask to do business. This happens all the time. So we will jump into this. We'll get moving. Pay attention. We're going to cover a lot of information. Hopefully everyone did their homework, watched the video. During this class, we're going to demystify some of that stuff, bring some more clarity to the picture. I'll outline exactly how we're going to do that in just a moment. So let's get to the rest of the housekeeping. Some quick notes I jotted down this morning, so I made sure to cover them and I didn't forget. First of all, something that's not on here, the MP4 conversions will all be done by Monday. So in REI Sales Academy, all of those videos will be in MP4 by Monday. That's when our tech guy said he would have it ready. Guys, remember to participate. We've got all kinds of people here. We got some people that just are looking to buy at a discount for wholesale or wholetail or even retail. We're selling properties. We're buying properties. Some of you are turnkey investors. If we need to bring some of the questions, the words into your world, if you have any questions about what about this specific area, what about this specific situation, how do I handle this, any questions at all, your participation is necessary so we answer those questions. There's just so many variables, so many different scenarios that if we try to use an example from every possible scenario out there with every class, we'd never get through them. They'd be 8-hour classes. So if you've missed something you need to hear or you need some more clarity, make sure to participate. Raise your hand. Also, as I ask questions, please participate. It makes this much better for everyone. Outside sales homework, essential. On these courses, we do two things. We always check for understanding first, and then we move into application. How do I use this in my world? This will not work if you don't do the homework and watch the videos. Don't forget inside sales call recordings. I see some of you are sending those in. We're getting those ramped up for Thursday, so we can start reviewing some of your calls as well. And as always, if you need anything, reach out on Voxer. Able to help a couple people last week through some situations. Had one trainee who had a pretty rough renegotiation he had to go do. He had to cut about 10 grand. Bought a house about 72. He really needed that house at about 65, so he had to go back and renegotiate. Didn't know how to handle that. Was a little bit scared. We talked for about 20 minutes on the phone. Walked him through it. Went through the negotiation, actually got the prospect to volunteer $5,000 less than the price he was even hoping to get it down to. So huge success, great victory for us. That kind of stuff we love to dive into. So if you run into that, reach out. Voxer me, email me, whatever. Voxer is usually pretty easy because we can chat back and forth. Might have to hop on the phone, but whatever medium you use, don't be afraid to reach out. This is the kind of stuff we love. Okay, so guys, let's jump into it. First of all, renew the diagnosis step. So hey, and Jason, got your message there. Just reach out to me individually, and we'll address that. All right, so the diagnosis. So when you look at the pyramid, you see that the diagnosis is really the biggest step in the entire pyramid, and it's that way for a reason. This is where sales are won or lost. This is where we get traction. And in order for the investment step to work, in order for the decision process to work, in order for those steps to be functional and enable us to overcome all the objections that we pull out from the prospect during those steps, we need to have a solid diagnosis under our belt, because that's how we're going to help our prospect get over those objections. That might not make a lot of sense right now, but it will when we jump into those steps. But this is a key. The diagnosis is why people will do business with us. It's how we're going to overcome all of our objections before we even get to the offer. Cannot stress the importance enough. Also, it's the hardest thing for people to catch on to, so we're going to spend a lot of time on the diagnosis step. When we look at this thing, we're going to have two classes for the diagnosis step. First today is checking understanding. We're going to really try to dial it in. I'm going to present it to you at a slightly different perspective than in the video, answer all your questions, and hopefully we get a little deeper understanding. Then next week, we're going to do some role play, some application. So we're going to spend 2 entire sessions on the diagnosis. Then the 2 classes after that, advanced listening and questioning and overcoming resistance, that's just how we make, really it's applicable to the entire sales process, but those 2 courses, advanced courses, are going to make you even more effective at the diagnosis. We really start to add some bells and whistles there. Advanced questioning, advanced listening, overcoming those resistant or hesitant prospects, we hit those hard. So really, this class and the next 3 are all highly focused on the diagnosis. So 4 out of the 12 classes we have, we focus in on that for a reason. So that being said, if you're a little confused after today, don't worry. We're going to hit this over and over again. And even as we go through all of the courses in the sales process, we'll bring it up, we'll replay it over and over again, and we'll keep diving back into it. So don't expect to be a master of it after the video or after today. We are going to chip away at this thing, and hopefully week by week you get better and better at it. Okay? So let's go ahead and continue on. First, I want to start to check a little bit of the understanding. I want to get a baseline for where we are, where our understanding of this whole thing is. So I want to start out with this general question. What's the intent of the diagnosis, and why is this thing important? According to the video, what were your takeaways? So this is where the participation starts. I'm going to kind of sit back. I want to review some of these answers. I want to get a good baseline again for where are we, so I know how deeply to dive into this, what to spend my time on, that sort of thing. So some of the answers are starting to come in through the questions box. Fantastic. If anyone wants to speak up, let me know in the questions box, or raise your hand and we can turn the audio on there. So let's see what we got here. Identify a problem of the seller, get the prospect to realize their pain and creates motivation for them to act, find the motivation, better understanding a seller's situation, uncover real issues, find out why they're selling. Diagnosis is where we understand their pain/problems, so we can build our presentation later, make them comfortable talking, alleviate their pain. So all of those are absolutely correct. It does all those things. Okay. When we talk about the diagnosis, it really is there to help us determine if there's a problem, a pain, or an opportunity, a want that exists that's really compelling enough for the prospect to take some action. Now, we're also going to use what we uncover here to overcome objections, concerns, create motivation. This is what our whole presentation, our offer is going to be based on. This is also going to create rapport, because when your prospect feels you understand them better than anyone else, that's a definite bonus. And if it comes down to a situation between you and a competitor, sometimes that's all you need, is for the prospect to feel you really understand. So all kinds of different things come into play here. Also uncover facts to gain trust, alleviate their pain. Really not alleviate the pain yet, but very close. We want to uncover it, and we want to put our prospects in touch with it. Lots of times this will be the first time they've actually like consciously articulated this and put words to what's going on and how this property is impacting them. And we see a lot of urgency and motivation created there. So very, very good. Okay, so there's a lot of science behind this, guys. We don't get into it too much in the video, but when we get into the science of decision making, neuroeconomics, or even just deeper into that, into the specifics of neuroscience, and we start to see how the brain works, this isn't just theory, guys. We actually know every part of the brain, how they play into decisions, how we can really let's say, activate different pieces of the brain when we need to, get a prospect thinking in certain ways, from the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to the amygdala and even the hippocampus. The limbic system, in other words, these pieces all are part of the emotional brain and how we make decisions. So we're not going to get too deep into the science. We're going to really shortcut this thing, and I'm going to give you a questioning strategy. But I want you to know that it's based on some deeply rooted science, okay? Everything we do as we go through it, that's what we want to base it on is facts, right? Is there science supporting it, and is this stuff field tested? Does it work? Does it work in all industries? So I just want to lay that foundation. This is really, when we get to questioning strategy, what the strategy is based on, and then we look at things like, Neil Rackham's work at 35,000 sales calls, 12 years, that really support this. And since then, there's been about a dozen more studies that support the same stuff we go over today. So let's push forward a little bit. What is pain? So pain doesn't have to be just negative, okay? When we talk about pain, we're going to talk about the negatives a lot of times, and that's for a reason. Negative pain or real pain is about 2 to 3 times as strong as the opportunity side of pain. But we're going to use this generic term of pain going forward. So I want to clarify what that term is. When we talk about pain, I want you to think about pain as it could be an opportunity someone wants to get to, or something negative someone wants to get away from. But when you think about pain, I just want you to think of that generic term as really the distance or the gap in between where someone is today and where they want to be. So that could be negative or positive. So, the negative side of pain, which again is more powerful when we're talking about creating urgency to take action and motivation, that could be things like stress and doubt and fear and those types of things. The opportunity side of pain, let's paint this picture. Here's the opportunity side of pain. Have you guys ever been satisfied with something you have? Completely 100% satisfied. Maybe that's your cell phone. Maybe that's a car, a home. Maybe that's a piece of technology. Maybe that's a software you use. Maybe it's an app on your phone. But have you ever been completely 100% satisfied with what you got? Whatever it is, whatever item it is, until you see the next step up, the newer phone, the newer car, you jump into someone else's car for lunch, something like that. Or maybe you're happy with your body, and then you see somebody who's just really got it dialed in, they're in shape, and all of a sudden you're not happy with where you are anymore. That's the opportunity side of pain. That's the want side of pain. So you might be completely okay where you're at, but because you want to be somewhere better, in a different situation, in a different home, a different car, have a different whatever you want to call it, that creates pain in our lives. Now we want that. We see others that have more or live a different sort of life. We might be happy until we see it, and now that we know we have the opportunity to get there, no matter how big or small that opportunity is, that gap in between where we are and where we want to be, that's pain. So it could be negative or it could be a positive thing, like a want. Quick raise of hands. Does that make sense, everybody? Who does that make sense to? We use the generic term of pain to talk about positives or negatives. It's just a distance between where someone is and where they want to be. All right, thanks for that feedback, everybody. So I wanted to clarify that because we are going to use that term often. So I also want to look at it this way. I see sales, when I talk to people, I see sales from a slightly different perspective, so I kind of want to let you into my head. And funny story. On Monday, I actually this continuum is what was playing in my head all of Monday. I drove up to St. Louis from where I'm from. Another class we have, not in this class, but we work with another company called Starting Point, who's in another class of ours. Starting Point Real Estate, I know them through Collective Genius, and we're working with their sales team right now too. So they asked, hey, will you come up to St. Louis and run an appointment with us? So I said, sure. So I drove up to St. Louis. I got in the car with the sales guy. He had what I consider to be the hard job. He was going to walk around with the clipboard and estimate repairs. That's something I know nothing about. So to me, that's the tough part. I ran the sales call, and in my head the entire time was this pain continuum. So I'm going to paint you a picture with this continuum in just a moment, so you can start to look at sales from a slightly different perspective. Long story short, we ended up buying a house. Took us 45 minutes to run through this same sales process you're about to learn. This was actually my first time in home. I've done this, I virtually wholesale, I've done this over the phone, but this was my first time in home. 45 minutes, we bought a house that ARV'd at 120 for about 38 and some change. Seller was happy as could be, started out being very reluctant. Just give me price, I don't want anything else. If you can't give me price, I'm not even going to talk to you. So this is a sales process you're about to learn, but let's jump back into pain. This is what's in my head every time I see a prospect. Where the prospect starts on this pain continuum really doesn't matter. So usually when I talk to acquisition agents and salespeople in all industries really, they're looking for a high level of pain, and to them, this is what constitutes a motivated prospect, right? Hey, they're in a lot of pain. This is a motivated prospect. Okay, they sometimes might start in this end of the pain continuum. In this illustration, this is a bad situation, high state of pain. But sometimes they also start in kind of a neutral position, right here in the middle of the continuum. And a lot of salespeople, this is where you hear a prospect say, hey, I'm fine, right? So kind of neutral. I'm okay, just calling to see what you'd offer. This, a lot of salespeople would not look at as a motivated seller. Can we raise a hand if you agree? Neutral prospect, probably not very motivated, okay? Common answer, absolutely. So, and Jessica says, this seller sounds like a majority of ours. So I look at this a little bit differently, okay? Whether they start in a high state of pain, whether they're neutral, or even if they're in a pretty good situation, I don't really gauge a prospect's motivation based on where they are in the continuum. What I'm looking for is this. What I'm always looking for is not where they start in the continuum, but what's the gap in between where they are and where they want to be. That's what I focus in on. That gap is going to tell me how much motivation there is or how much motivation we need to bring to the surface. So even though this prospect's in high pain, if I can only move him a little bit through that pain continuum, that small gap, that's not a lot of motivation. So a lot of people would confuse where the starting point is, high pain, to, hey, we got a terrific amount of motivation here. I could look at the same scenario and say, hey, if I can only move them through the pain continuum a little bit, there's low motivation here. What I'm looking for is something like this. I like to deal with sellers who, I don't care where they start. If they start with, quote unquote, I'm fine, but I can create a big enough gap in between where they are and where they want to be, this to me is gold. This is high motivation. So I want to start to reframe the way you think about sales from being in a high state of pain on that continuum or fine, or even on the pleasure side of the continuum, to the way to judge motivation is really that gap in between where they are and where they want to be. Where they start out, it's usually, yes, obvious answer, it's usually easier when they start in a high amount of pain. But really, I want us to start thinking about, this is what motivation looks like. That gap is where we're going to find motivation and create urgency. Let me pause. Does this make sense to everybody? Kind of the way to think about motivation using this sales process and thinking about where your sellers are and kind of gauging pain, gauging interest, uncovering urgency. Okay, awesome. So that's the way I want us to start thinking about it. So I use this illustration just just for us to start to just recreate the way we look at this whole thing. Shifting your thinking, in other words. Okay? So let me ask you some questions. We're going to go through a couple of exercises to continue to gain clarity on the diagnosis and why people buy. Okay? So, question for you. Not a trick question, just looking, why do people buy and sell homes? So just fill up that questions box real quick. Not a trick question. Don't need a lengthy answer. Just why is it that people buy and sell homes? There's all kinds of reasons. So yeah, downsizing, make a profit, job transfer, investment, new job, investment, needs change, job loss, money trouble, family passes, don't want to deal with repairs, get out of a bad situation, moving, broke, larger house. So yeah, so all kinds of reasons, right guys? We're going to come back to that question in just a second. Raise of hands, how many of you guys purchased a new cell phone in the last 12 months? All right, so 5, 10, maybe 10 or so of you. 15, okay. So let me go through some questions with you real quick. Why did you get a new cell phone? So again, this isn't a trick question, but for those of you who raise your hands and want to participate, why in the world did you buy a new cell phone? Okay, so broke, bad service, contract ended, lost my phone, better camera, one was broke, cell phone was old, mine fell in the toilet. Great deal. Okay, so great. Let's stop there. So that was lots of reasons why you bought a new cell phone. But let's take this one step deeper. I'm going to go through a couple of these. So one of you said, let me pick some of these out. I've got a ton that came in, so I'm kind of extending my window here so I can see them all. Okay. One of you said that it was for a better camera. I'm looking for that one. So Jake and a couple others said better camera. So let me ask you this question. Better camera, why in the world do you need a better camera? And any of you can chip in and answer, but why would you need a better camera? Okay, for home inspection, take better pics of houses, 4 points, better pics, more pixels, so higher quality and for work. Well, let me kind of reverse that question. What happens if you don't have a better camera? If you just have the same old camera, or your camera doesn't work, or your camera's not good enough? What does that mean? Hassle, okay? Bad pics for wholesale emails, okay? So let's take those two. It's a hassle. Bad pics for wholesale emails, not able to get good angles. So let's play this out. Hassle, missing opportunities, bad pictures for wholesale emails, not able to get good pictures. What's that mean? If you're not able to get good pictures for wholesale emails, or you said hassle, kind of educate me. What's that mean to you? What's the impact there? So lost dollars, harder to resell a property, buyers turn away for a bad impression. So let's take that a step further. If you're losing money, it's harder to resell your properties, takes more time to sell a property, takes time for the hassle, less income. You have to make excuses for bad pictures. When all that stuff, when you have to work harder, you're losing deals, you got to make excuses, how's that make you feel? Simple, straightforward, frustrated, terrible, sucks. That's the word I would use. Not good, anxious, unprofessional, wasting time. Guys, this is the heart of the diagnosis. Our questions are going to get us there. So here's what my argument is. None of you bought a new camera or a new phone for a better camera. You bought the new cell phone because you either were or you wanted to avoid that frustration, that feeling of this sucks, that terrible feeling, not good, that anxiousness. You don't want to feel unprofessional. You don't want to have to make excuses, waste time. That's my argument for you. Nobody buys a camera or a new phone because they need a camera. They do because of feelings they want to have or they don't want to have. Guys, does this make sense? And we can if you disagree, you can disagree, but does this make sense? It's not about the camera. Okay, we're either going towards an emotion or away from one. That's the heart of the diagnosis. So we make decisions based on emotion. We covered that thing to death, right? So based on emotions. How do we get that emotion? We're going to use the diagnosis and the questioning strategy, and we're going to get people in touch with these emotions. So if I were selling cell phones, I would go through that same conversation until someone said, you know what, it sucks. You know, it's frustrating. I lose deals. I lose money. I don't want to feel unprofessional. I hate having to explain myself. And my question would be, hey, a new cell phone is going to cost you $400, $500, $600. Is it worth spending $400, $500, $600 so you don't feel that anxiousness? You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to worry about not getting a deal because and where the money's coming from and that frustration because of bad pictures. Is it worth it? You guys starting? That's a quick intro. That's very high level, but that's what the diagnosis is all about. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, so since we know people buy on emotion, we are going to get to emotion using the diagnosis steps. So my question we're going back to here is, why do people buy or sell homes? Kristen says to feel better. To avoid a bad feeling. Different lifestyle, relieve financial stress. Impress visitors, eliminate frustration. Guys, that's it. That's the core of all this. That's what we're getting down to. So when we bought that house in St. Louis on Monday, ARV was 120. He didn't want to take less than 60. Okay? How did we get it for 38? It wasn't about the house. Here's what it was about. As we walked through and we started talking about his reasons for downsizing, we got into health reasons, and he felt like he could not take care of the house anymore. And we started to walk through, and we got to a shop, and I saw all kinds of tools and a shed out back with all kinds of tools, sandblasters. He worked with stone. He welded. I mean, every tool imaginable. A tremendous amount of pride. He built the kitchen cabinets. He laid the counters. He built the counters out of stone himself. Tremendous amount of pride in home upkeep. He basically built this thing. His health got to a point where he could no longer use those tools. He could not keep up with his house anymore. It started to fall into disrepair. There was a tremendous amount of pride at stake. Another emotion. A lot of frustration. He knew he had to move because he couldn't keep up with it anymore. His pride was being hurt. But when we got to what would keep him from moving, house full of those tools and stuff, our health is failing, we don't know what to do with it. We can't pack it up. We don't know what to do with it. So that was a deal killer, and another item we used to get that house under contract. So when we got to the presentation, our offer was this. Hey, listen, here's what I'm hearing. You're feeling stressed. You're feeling like you can't take care of it anymore, and that hurts because you built this place. You hate walking through it every day and seeing it falling apart, knowing you used to be able to do something about it, and now you just can't. But you're also really scared to take your next step because you don't know what you're going to do with all this stuff. You don't even want to tell your kids you're moving because you don't have your plan set, and all that fear and uncertainty is keeping you from pulling the trigger even though you want to. Listen, I can't pay $60 for this house. I can only pay about, you know what? I can only pay about $38. And I know taking care of those issues, even though we can help you with those problems, even though we can clear out the house, we can ship anything where you need it to go, we can do X, Y, and Z, even though we can help you feel better about where you are, put you into a place you can take care of, a place with, and I went through that presentation, I said, even though we can do all those things and solve those problems, you can't take under $40 for this house. And I sat back and I shut up. And for the next 10 or 15 minutes, he told me all the feelings, all the relief he'd get if we were able to do that stuff for him. We bought the house for 38. So that's where we're headed. That's where we're leading, okay? Make presentations based on pain and relieving, at the core, relieving what the pain or the pressure or the fear and the uncertainty that these people feel. That's how we gain understanding. We flip the tables and our prospects start selling us. So that's where this thing is leaded. I just want to set the stage there because that's where we want to get to. Raise a hand. Do we want to be able to buy houses at deep, deep discounts even if others offer a little bit more? Right? We want to be able to sell to prospects who are reluctant to even letting us in their homes. Just give me a price. That's how this thing started out. This is the cornerstone of it. Okay? So let's keep going. So we're talking about the diagnosis step. In the video, there were some different questions, different types of questions we went over in the diagnosis step. Does anyone remember what types of questions salespeople ask? There were 3 or 4 different types of questions from spin selling that we ask. Any of you remember what those questions are or how we use them? If you just remember the names of those questions or the types of questions, let me see what you got. Some problem questions, absolutely. Picture perfect, impact, situational, awesome. Picture perfect, good. So there's a few different types of questions. We use a simplified version of spin selling. Spin starts with the situational, problem, implication, and the needs payoff. We kind of simplify it. What we found is you only really need 2 questions, sometimes 3. The big ones are problem, impact, and then when we want a little extra gusto, when we need to build some more urgency and motivation, when we really want to drive this thing home, we can use picture perfect to do so. Picture perfect questions do a lot of things. They activate the hippocampus. When the hippocampus is activated and those neurons are firing, people are more likely to take bigger risks. We can activate the hippocampus all kinds of ways, from showing pictures to doing different things, but that's where picture perfect questions come in. So problem, impact, picture perfect. It's not just the questions you ask, it's the types of questions and the order we ask them in. What you've learned in the training is situational questions are almost worthless. Problem questions, we start to gain some traction, but the top salespeople focus most of their time on the impact questions. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about these 3 types of questions to finish today out, what they sound like, how they go together, what they do. So problem questions. Can you guys give me some examples of problem questions? We're not even going to cover situational questions. No need to. Situational questions is, where's the house? How long you lived here? Doesn't matter. All right, Sherry, great one. So situational question, what made you give us a call? What were you hoping I could do for you? Beautiful, Jessica. What else do we have here? So I love these. I love those 2 examples because they're nice and vague. We're not trying to steer the prospect in any situation. We're trying to get a little, we're trying to find out why they called. This is the doorway to pain. So we can't lead them. We got to let them answer. So tell me about your situation. Thanks, John. So some examples of problem questions. Why were you interested in talking more to us? Awesome. What made you decide to meet or talk with me? What were you hoping I might be able to do for you? Was there anything specific you were hoping to talk about? Hey, I have to ask, why even get rid of this place? Why buy a new house? Why sell your house? Problem questions are going to start nice and vague, okay? As we go through, we're going to learn how to dive a little deeper into the problem to find the specific issue, but this is the entryway to pain, okay? So let me ask you this. What are some common problems your prospects might have? So you guys are doing this, you're out there running into this stuff. Fill me in. What are some of the common, whether you're selling a property, you're buying, you're doing turnkey investments, what are some of the common problems you guys run into? No longer want to be a landlord, okay? So the old tired landlords, or multiple mortgages, right? You get caught with the second home, right? You move into one, you didn't get your other sold, you get caught with that second home. Out of state, okay, what else? Downsizing, perfect. Relocating, having to sell, buy a new house, retirement, right? Tenants in home, inheritance, divorce. So great. Lots of problems we just came up with there. Inherited, want to be able to quit my job, don't want to make the repairs. Awesome. So these are the problems we want to get to. Let me ask you this question. Are these problems examples of pain? Non-paying relative in the house. Awesome. So guys, we got answers all over the board for that last question, from definitely no to absolutely, all over the board, right? Are these examples of pain? I'm going to tell you it's not, and I'll explain. This is usually where we stop where salespeople stop, is we think we have a lot of pain here. These are indicators of possible pain. Let me paint you a picture. Okay, house is too big. Okay, that's a problem. But let me bring you through two different scenarios. You have an older couple, house is too big, that's the problem, and you have a younger couple, house is too big. Okay, well, let's say the younger couple. Okay, your house is too big. What's that mean? Well, it means, I don't know, a little more to clean, but the kids clean it. They have their chores. Bills are a little more, but it's nothing unbearable. It's a few more bucks, for utilities. If you ask a younger couple, they have kids, what's the impact? Their house might be too big, but there might be relatively low impact, not a big deal. Now, let's juxtapose that against an older couple who maybe they've just had some recent surgeries, hip replacement, knee replacement. Their mobility is limited. They have to cross 5,000 square feet to get from the master bedroom to the kitchen. They have to go 300 feet from the garage, right, into the kitchen, and then again all the way across the house to the master bedroom. Okay? Maybe there's a couple flights of stairs. Okay? Those two situations, exact same problem. Do you think one of those couples are in more pain than the other? The younger couple, relatively low pain, right? The older couple, high pain, right? Maybe a lot of motivation. So a problem is an entryway to pain. Okay, a problem is where we start to dig into the impact. So that'll be the next set of questions. The problem is never the problem. It's the impact of the problem that we need to solve. So most salespeople stop at the problem and just assume this is enough to take advantage of. But when we start questioning it, we usually, when we go deeper with our questioning, which we'll learn to do today and over the next couple of weeks, what we're going to find is the problem they bring you is usually not the real problem. You're going to start to uncover all kinds of other stuff. You might even find out that the initial problem they brought to you is not that important in solving it all, and you find something else that really is. So I'm going to say the problem is not the problem. The problem is not pain. That's a potential indicator of pain. Where we can really judge pain and find pain is the impact of those problems. Does that make sense? Raise your hands if that makes sense. Kind of an abstract concept, so I want to see where we're at here. Okay, so that's kind of a sneak peek into why don't we just ask the problem. I mean, how many of us are guilty of, hey, well, why are you moving? And then we stop there. When you start to question deeper, what you're going to find is that problem, sometimes there's deep pain under there. Sometimes that's just the first problem they threw out there. Sometimes it's a deeper problem, maybe even something they're embarrassed about. But once you start digging and you start asking impact questions, and we go through these questioning strategies, what you're going to find is usually the reason you thought they'd sell, nothing to do with why they're actually selling. This is the difference right here. This is why when we look at Huthwaite's study, the top salespeople, the top 5 or 10% in every industry, most of their questions are impact questions, where the mediocre to poor salespeople ask mostly situational and then some problem questions. Do you guys kind of see how that correlates, how getting to the real issue has to do with the impact questions, and why the stats are the way they are, why top salespeople ask more impact questions? Is this starting to make sense to everybody? Why we would use this questioning strategy? Awesome, awesome. So give me some examples of impact questions. So you gave me some, you gave me some different, uh, problems your prospects have, some common problems. How do we find impact? So let's just spitball some questions here. What are you missing out on as a result? How is this affecting your life? How is this affecting relationships? How does that make you feel? How is it affecting your home life? Is there anything you're missing out on as a result of the property? How does that make you feel? What's that like? Oh, guys, absolutely perfect. Beautiful. Now, in real world scenarios, right, we're going to ask questions our own ways. These, again, remember when we write words, these are your training wheels. All these things are going to sound very different in real appointments, when we're actually having a real conversation. But that's it. Basically, I just want you to know the concept. When we're talking about impact, what we're really talking about is how is this situation impacting them. So remember that cell phone conversation we had just a second ago. We had to go through 3 or 4 layers of questions until we determined, the problem you brought me is that it was the camera. But the problem wasn't the problem. The problem was much deeper than that, right? So hopefully this is all starting to gel and make sense. So is the situation costing you anything physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually? Does it impact relationships with any others in any way? Is it keeping you from something, from accomplishing a goal, or from something you want to do? Are you missing out on anything as a result of the property? Is there any way the property is affecting other people? Does the property affect even how you spend your time at all? Guys, when you really think about it, when you really think about the deals you've done and why you've done them and what your prospects have shared with you, do we agree or disagree that these reasons are the real reasons they sell their house, or they make the decision to move, or they buy a house, or they buy a rental property or a turnkey investment? Do we agree or disagree? And it's okay to disagree, right? With the number of people in this room, if no one disagrees, I'm going to be really surprised. And that's okay. So all agree so far, but Jessica says, what does it mean if the prospect pushes back on you when asking these types of questions? So Jessica, that's going to mean that prospect feels like we are digging too deep, or kind of asking intrusive questions. We don't have trust built up yet. They might think that what we uncover we're going to use against them, take advantage of them. So there's some mistrust there. So we are going to cover that in 2 different sessions. One is overcoming resistance, exactly how we deal with that. And there's another course we do called Okay, Not Okay in the Psychology of Empathy. And we'll do that one too. I actually have that one. I just did that one yesterday with another group. I haven't recorded. If you want to hear that before we get to it, because we won't get to it with you for a number of weeks, let me know. I'll get you access to that recording. But that's what it means. For some reason, we've made the prospect uncomfortable. So advance agreements help with that, but there's a couple other ways when we talk about overcoming resistance and empathy. So Voxer me or email me if you want that video, if any of you want that video, and we'll get deeper into that. But overcoming resistance we hit in 2 weeks, 2 or 3. Okay, but let's check basic understanding. Basic understanding. Okay. Do we all agree that that cell phone, it's not about the camera? Can we all agree that when people are selling you a home, it's not about whatever that initial surface problem is? It's not about the repairs. It's not about the finance. It's about the impact those things are having on them. Can we all agree on that? I mean, it's common sense, right, guys? I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, right? We just really want to look at sales from this perspective. We want to really learn how people make decisions, so we know how to have the right conversation with them, and we know how to motivate them and create urgency. We know what to zero in on. We know what problem we're actually there to solve. Because guys, business, all business, I don't care what business you're in, if you sell products, you sell services, whether it's tangible or intangible, we all sell the same thing, that's solutions to people's pain. So this is the key concept of the training. And believe me, once you start thinking in these terms, sales becomes really, really easy. Easy to identify people you can't help and not waste time with them, and easy to identify those you can help know exactly how to help them, and have the right conversation with them to explain how you're going to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. So impact questions. Okay. So just quick question I'll address here that came in. Better to ask these questions in person or over the phone. I prefer, studies show face-to-face, you're always going to get more. Nothing wrong. We do this over the phone too. We do this over GoToWebinar or Skype. I sell software or train a company that sells software all over the country, actually all over North America. They do all their sales over the web. We do the same stuff over the web. Over just like this, PowerPoint on the screen, talking to a group of people in a boardroom somewhere. But when you can see how people react and you're face-to-face, you're always going to get more traction. Okay? It's important we ask the questions. Easier to do it face-to-face, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as we get to what we're really there to do for our prospect. When it comes to phone sales or the inside sales part, if you want to get into this, that's great. All we really need is enough motivation on the phone to get them to take that appointment, and then we can dive deeper in the appointment. But if you want to get a head start on that, if you need to build up some more motivation or urgency, this is how you do it. All right, so let's push forward. What are some common examples of impact from the problems you just listed your prospects might be experiencing? So you gave me a big list of different problems your prospects have, right? The inheritance, the downsizing, the retirement, all that. Now, I want you to start, we're doing a mind shift here. What's the real impact? Now that you're thinking about it, if you were to drill all the way down, what's the impact of those problems? What impact are your prospects experiencing due to those problems? So yeah, Kristen says they all pretty much contribute to anxiety, frustration, or having to take calls every now and then about repairs. So I'm guessing that's tired landlord. They want to be able to do something else they want to do. Quality of life, stress, waste of time, stress, disappointment in future plans. Guys, those are the problems that we're here to solve, but we've got to not only get to them ourselves, we not only have to understand ourselves what the problems are, but for many of your prospects, what you're going to find is that they've never actually, laid it out like this. They've never actually sat down and said, you know what? I feel absolutely horrible that I can't go weekly bowling anymore. That I can't go out with the guys for lunch because all my money is spent on keeping this freaking house up, and it's embarrassing having to brown bag it every day for lunch. These are the types of problems you're going to get to, and you're going to connect the house, right? Their situation, feeling inadequate, Jamie says. We're going to connect the property, their situation, to those things they feel that we know produces urgency and motivation. We're going to help them through our questions connect all the dots. So it's not only so we can present and we know what problem we're solving, but for many of your prospects, it's going to be the first time they've actually connected all the dots themselves, and you're going to get a lot of aha moments like, you know what? I can't keep doing this. This isn't right. So Kristen also says back to emotional. You see where this all leads? You see the diagnosis? When we get down to the very core, and a lot of psychologists say, when it comes to behavior and driving behavior, all behavior is driven from one of two things: going towards pleasure or away from pain. Right? That's it. So we want to get down to the nitty-gritty. And that's what this questioning strategy is going to help us do. Thank you for all that participation there. So this impact are these examples of real pain. Let's see what we got. Yes, yes, yes. And then we got some no's and some more yeses. So impact is going to be examples of pain. And it is yes and no. So all of you are right to an extent. This is where we get to pain. When it gets emotional, That's where we get that. That's a real example of pain. The frustration, the anger, the boredom, the want, the jealousy, the feelings of inadequacy, all those things. When you get to emotional words, when you start to hear emotion, and you'll see emotion. I can't tell you how many CEOs I've seen break down and cry in front of me. Strong, powerful people that you expect to be composed, but when you have these conversations and you get down to it, you're going to start to see some emotion. And it's not that we're manipulating or placing anything there that wasn't already there. We're just bringing it to the surface so we can deal with it. Okay? So problem questions, indicator of pain, where to dig. Impact questions are where we get to pain. Yeah, so once we uncover a problem, we're going to use impact questions to go deeper and deeper and deeper to see if there's pain associated with it. Sometimes we'll get to pain, sometimes we won't. And when we don't get to pain, what we're going to see is, I better find something else because this is not enough to motivate them to make a change. So we're going to have to test. This is where we start to test different pains and have the right conversation early on, very early in the conversation. You'll find when you start doing this well that you're going to go through 2 or 3 different scenarios before you hit something that the prospect's willing to act on. We'll get to the end, we'll hear emotional words and phrases. Well, is that enough for you to sell your house in the next 30 days if you could take care of that? Assuming price is where you need it to be and this and that, assuming all that stuff's where. If you hear no, that's not a pain point we have any traction with. I better keep digging. If it's absolutely, okay, is there any other reason? Take that off the table. Say you didn't have to deal with that. Is there any other reason why you'd sell? That's what we're going to. So we'll go down these pain funnels, we'll test it, and we'll push forward. So let's continue on with today's training because I want to get through this without keeping you over. Picture perfect questions need payoff questions, in other words. Give some examples of picture perfect questions. Now remember, these are going to sound much different in real life. We don't talk the way we write. I understand that. None of my problem, impact, picture perfect questions sound exactly like the words on the screen because we just have normal conversations and we play off of each other. So here's some picture perfect questions. Where do you see yourself living in a year? Do you have a place picked out? If you had a magic wand, when we settle, where are you going to go? Are you going to take that vacation? What would you do with all your free time? Awesome. What if you already sold? What would that look like? Say this was taken care of 6 months ago. Where would you be today? And we're going to use the same thing. We're going to picture perfect and impact. How would that make you feel if this was off your table, off your plate? You had moved into that apartment on 36th Street you're talking about. Everything's moved. You got a few bucks in the bank from selling the house. You're settled in. You wake up Monday morning, time to go to work, having all this behind you. How's that feel? Walk me through that. Is that a big deal, a little deal? You don't care? So picture perfect questions. How would you feel if, what decisions would you be able to make, right? They're just like impact questions, but we're going to future pace it. What actions would you take? How would you spend your time? Why is this so effective? Why do we use this to really drive it home? This is where we get prospects who are quote unquote fine on that continuum. This is where we drive that motivation and urgency. This is where we create it. Hey, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm okay. Using picture perfect questions, taking them through different scenarios, having them paint that vivid picture themselves, having them feel it, hear it, smell it, live it. All of a sudden, when you see this different future that's possible in your head, then you start to feel pain. You create that gap in between where they are and where they want to be. If you're somewhere and you don't know, well, what's the saying? Ignorance is bliss. Sometimes we're completely content until we see something else, right? Oh my gosh, look at that. I want one of those. I want to be there. I want that kind of life. You're completely content until you see where you want to be. Then all of a sudden you were fine a second ago, and now there's a huge gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that's how we create pain with prospects who are quote unquote fine. Guys, does that make sense? Where are we with that? Okay, this is where we're going to get most of the traction. High pain on that continuum, that's going to be, those are the easier ones. But where we really want to increase sales are those ones that start out, hey, I'm fine. Hey, I get it, you're fine. What we want to do is help that prospect. There's no pain, anything negative happening, problem, impact. No, they're okay. What we want to start to do is paint that picture of the future. Well, hey, if you did sell, where would you move to? Why there? Interesting, you said a bigger place. Why a bigger place? Well, what would that be like? How the heck would that feel? That's where we're going with this thing. So the end of the day, I want you to shift your mind from it's not where your prospects start, but it's how big of a gap between where they are and where they want to be. That's where we want our questions to lead to. And once there's a crystal clear picture of where I am today and exactly what that feels like, where I want to be and exactly what that feels like, can you guys start to see how that starts to create a tremendous amount of motivation and urgency? Is this common sense? Does all of this make sense to everybody? Is it kind of a different perspective that you're looking at sales through, or is this something that you kind of already knew? I'm guessing it's something you guys already knew, but we just want to put structure behind it. All right, thanks for the feedback, everyone. So some examples of picture-perfect scenarios. So it could be their house, where they want to live, a school district, anything. Not going to dive too deep into that right now because we are running short on time. What's the gap between impact and picture-perfect question signify? Pain. So that's how we can take someone without pain and we can create it. And what do we do when we're in pain? The more pain we're in, what do we want to do? Yeah, we want to solve it. We want it to go away. The more pain someone's in, the less money. Let me paint you a picture. Okay? How about this? Let's talk about pain. Let's talk about a problem. Problem is healthcare. I've got 4 kids. Let's say one of those kids are sick. Okay? We're going to talk about healthcare. Let's say my daughter or my son, let's say my 3-year-old has the sniffles. I'm going to go down to Walgreens on the corner, and I'm going to buy some type of over-the-counter medicine for him. I know he's just got the sniffles. It'll probably go away all on its own, whether I do something or don't do something. So there's little pain there, right? So when I'm looking at those cough syrups or whatever it is I'm looking at, some might be $2, $5, $10. I'm probably going to go with the cheapest one. Why would I go with the cheapest one? Low pain. When there's low pain, I make my decision on money. Let's flip the scenario a little bit, okay? So we're talking about the problem is my child's sick, low threshold on pain, I make my decision on money. Let's say I get home and he's having trouble breathing. He's turning blue. He's swelling up. There's all kinds of things happening. I freak out. I throw him in the car. I rush him to the ER with my wife. Doctors come out, they throw him on a gurney, they start rushing him to wherever they rush him to. And the doctor says to me, hey, before we treat him, I want you to know this could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even 7 figures. What do you want me to do? What do you guys think I'm going to say? Okay? Absolutely. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. So that illustration, here's what I want to illustrate with that. Here's my point. Problem, healthcare. Low pain, every dollar matters. I'm literally making a decision on $2 or $3 on what medicine to get, what treatment to give them. High pain, I'm freaking out. I'm in a high state of pain. Money literally loses all value to me. Money loses all value. So when we're talking about buying homes at a discount, do you think having your prospect in that high state of pain can impact what they're willing to do to get rid of that pain? No pain, money is all that matters. Higher pain goes, money, it reaches a point where money doesn't even have a value anymore. on Monday in St. Louis. It was just, you know what? He literally said, the money doesn't matter. To not have to deal with the stress, not have to worry about it anymore, not have to feel this. Those were his words to me as he was selling me on why he should take under 40 grand for a $120,000 house that he had his foot set down at 60. So guys, we're out of time for today. Next week, we're going to go into more of the application. So what do these conversations sound like? What words do we use? What questions do we ask? How do we get there? How do we get from A to B? So I know I had a question came in a second ago. How do I know when to start with picture perfect? That's what we cover next week. We've divided this into 2 sessions so we could really give it the time it deserves. We hit picture perfect next week. Guys, does this give you some clarity on this sales process, how we buy at a discount, how we solve pain, how we use pain to create motivation and urgency? Was this hour worth your time today? At the end of the day, that's what I want to know. Was this hour worth your time? Okay, if there's anything you need, reach out to me, okay? Guys, that's it for today. Reach out to me if you need anything. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you for the participation. We'll be seeing you again soon, either on the inside call or next week's outside call. See you soon. Bye, everybody.